The secret to mastering your thoughts. Throughout human history, the greatest philosophers, sages, and spiritual leaders have all emphasized the same truth. Your mind shapes your reality. The thoughts you nurture determine how you perceive the world, how you feel about yourself, and how you act in the face of both adversity and opportunity. Yet, mastering one's thoughts is not an easy path. The mind is often restless, leaping from one idea to another, replaying old wounds and projecting anxieties into the future. Most people live as if their thoughts were wild horses pulling them in every direction, never realizing that they have the power to take the reins. The secret to mastering your thoughts is not about forcing the mind into submission or pretending that negative ideas don't exist. Instead, it's about cultivating awareness, discipline, and intentional direction. It is about learning to observe thoughts without being enslaved by them, guiding them toward creativity and clarity rather than chaos and despair. Imagine your mind as a vast garden. If you leave it unattended, weeds will grow and spread, but with patience and care, you can cultivate flowers, fruits, and trees that nourish and uplift. In this journey, we will uncover how to gain mastery over the invisible but powerful stream of mental activity that shapes every aspect of your life. We will explore the role of self-awareness, the discipline of focus, the art of reframing, the necessity of inner silence, and the transformative practice of aligning thought with purpose. Each of these pillars forms part of a greater process, one that leads to inner freedom and lasting peace. Let us begin with the first and most essential step, self-awareness, the foundation of awareness, observing without judgment. To master your thoughts, you must first know them. This sounds simple, but in practice, it is one of the greatest challenges any person can undertake. Most people go through life without ever truly observing the flow of their own minds. They react impulsively to situations, get carried away by emotion, and mistake every thought that passes through their heads as an absolute truth. Yet the essence of mastery lies in stepping back, watching the mind's movements, and realizing that you are not your thoughts. You are the awareness behind them. When you begin to practice self-observation, you will notice just how many thoughts pass through the mind each day. Studies suggest that the average person has tens of thousands of thoughts daily, most of them repetitive, unconscious, and rooted in memory or fear. Imagine if you could shine a light on this mental stream and start to see the patterns. Perhaps you would notice that you constantly judge yourself, replay conversations from the past, or anticipate disaster in the future. At first, this realization may feel overwhelming, like opening the door to a cluttered room, but it is the first necessary step. Without awareness, there is no possibility of change. Observation is not about controlling every single thought, nor is it about labeling them as good or bad. It is about cultivating a state of mindful witnessing. When you observe a thought like, "I'm not good enough," instead of reacting to it emotionally or believing it, you simply acknowledge, there is a thought of self-doubt. You begin to separate the thinker from the thought. In this space of detachment, you gain freedom. You realize that a thought is only a mental event, not a fixed reality. This practice can be deepened through meditation. Sitting in stillness, you allow thoughts to arise and pass like clouds across the sky. Some may be pleasant, some disturbing, but all are temporary. The more you practice this, the more you see that thoughts do not define you. They are like waves on the surface of the ocean, while your true being is the still depth beneath. Over time, this awareness brings clarity and calm. Instead of being tossed around by every mental storm, you remain anchored in presence. Self-awareness also extends beyond meditation into daily life. Every moment offers an opportunity to notice your thoughts, while speaking to someone, while waiting in line, while working on a task. The challenge is to bring the same mindful observation to these ordinary moments, catching yourself before you react automatically. For instance, when you feel anger rising because of someone's words, pause and notice the thought that triggered it. Ask yourself, is this thought true? Is it useful? Does it help me grow? Often you will find that the mind creates unnecessary suffering by clinging to interpretations and judgments. The secret here is compassion. Observing your thoughts is not about criticizing yourself for having negative ones. It is about creating space, understanding, and kindness toward your inner world. Every human mind generates fear, doubt, envy, and anger at times. This is natural. Mastery lies not in erasing them, but in recognizing them for what they are, passing visitors in the house of your mind. You can choose whether to entertain them or let them go. With practice, self-awareness becomes second nature. You begin to recognize recurring mental loops, old stories that no longer serve you. You notice how your mind reacts in predictable ways, and with that recognition, you gain the power to interrupt the cycle. Over time, the simple act of watching without judgment transforms the quality of your inner life. The weeds of unconscious thought begin to lose their grip, and the soil becomes ready for intentional seeds of wisdom, gratitude, and peace. Mastering your thoughts begins here, by awakening to them. Without awareness, you are asleep, driven by habits you do not even notice. With awareness, you awaken to your own power. The first step is always to see clearly, for only then can you choose wisely. So if you are committed to truly mastering your thoughts and unlocking the secret to inner freedom, begin today by simply observing. Close your eyes for a few minutes, notice the endless stream of ideas and remind yourself, I am not my thoughts. I am the one who observes them. And before we move on to the next step of this journey, I invite you to support this channel. Subscribe now, so that together we can continue exploring these powerful teachings and bring more clarity, peace, and strength into your life. The discipline of focus, directing the mind toward clarity. Focus is the bridge between awareness and mastery. For once, you have learned to observe your thoughts without judgment. The next step is learning how to direct the immense energy of the mind toward clarity, peace, and purposeful creation. Without focus, awareness remains passive, like watching a river endlessly flowing, but never deciding where it should lead. Focus is the discipline that allows you to channel that river, to guide the stream of thought in ways that nourish your life rather than drain it. The challenge lies in the fact that the modern world is designed to scatter attention. We live in an age of constant distraction, where every device, every notification, every demand on our time pulls us in multiple directions at once. The mind becomes fragmented, constantly shifting from one stimulus to another, and in this fragmentation, we lose the ability to harness the deeper power of thought. True focus is not only about ignoring external distractions, it is also about taming the inner distractions that arise from the restless nature of the mind itself. To cultivate focus, we must first understand what focus truly is. It is not a rigid clenching of the mind, nor a desperate attempt to block out every thought. Rather, it is a calm, steady attention, a gathering of mental energy into a single point. Imagine sunlight dispersed through the sky. It warms, but does not ignite. Now imagine the same sunlight concentrated through a magnifying glass onto a piece of paper. The energy becomes powerful enough to create fire. So too with the mind. When scattered thoughts are weak and unfocused, when concentrated, they have the power to transform reality. Focus begins with intention. Every moment you have the power to decide where your attention will rest. This decision is not always conscious. Most people allow their attention to be captured by whatever stimulus is strongest. A ringing phone, a flashing screen, a worrying memory, an imagined scenario, all compete for mental space. But when you begin to practice conscious focus, you reclaim the ability to say, this is what I choose to give my mind to, and everything else can wait. This is the discipline of priority, of recognizing that not every thought deserves your time. Not every impulse must be followed. Focus is the art of choosing what matters most and gently but firmly returning the mind to it again and again. The practice of focus is often compared to training a muscle, and for good reason. At first, when you attempt to concentrate on your breath, on a book, on a task, you will find the mind quickly drifting. Thoughts will arise about the past, the future, or completely unrelated matters. The untrained mind is like a puppy, easily distracted, running off in every direction. The key is patience. Each time you notice distraction, you simply return your attention to the chosen point. Over time, the mind becomes stronger, more disciplined, able to stay where you place it. In this way, focus grows through repeated effort, just as muscles grow through repeated exercise. There is a profound difference between forcing focus and allowing focus. Forcing focus creates tension, a sense of inner resistance. Allowing focus means aligning with something that naturally draws your attention, something that feels meaningful and engaging. One of the secrets to mastering your thoughts is to choose focal points that inspire you, whether it is a vision of your highest self, a task that reflects your purpose, or even a single breath that reminds you of life's presence. When you focus on what aligns with your values and deepest intentions, the practice becomes less of a struggle and more of a devotion. Distractions will always exist. The question is not how to eliminate them entirely, but how to respond when they arise. The mind will always try to wander. Old fears, unfinished tasks, even sudden memories may surface while you attempt to focus. Instead of fighting them, acknowledge them briefly and let them pass. The discipline lies in returning again and again to your chosen point of focus. Each return is a victory. Each moment of attention is a step closer to mastery. An essential element of focus is learning to distinguish between what is urgent and what is important. The modern world is filled with urgent matters, emails, messages, small tasks that clamor for attention. Yet the truly important matters, the growth of your inner life, the development of wisdom, the cultivation of deep relationships, are often quiet and easy to overlook. Mastering your thoughts means using focus to prioritize the important over the merely urgent, to give your best attention to what truly shapes your destiny. This requires courage, for it often means saying no to distractions that others treat as necessities. But in this refusal, you gain the priceless gift of a mind centered on what matters most. Another aspect of focus is single tasking. While the world praises multitasking, the truth is that the human mind is not designed to do multiple things at once with depth and clarity. Multitasking divides attention, dilutes energy, and often leads to shallow results. Single tasking, on the other hand, is the practice of bringing your full presence to one thing at a time. When you eat, you simply eat, tasting every bite. When you speak to someone, you are fully present in the conversation. When you work on a task, you give it your undivided attention. This level of focus not only improves results, but also brings peace, for the mind is no longer scattered, but anchored in the present. The discipline of focus is also linked to the power of visualization. When you learn to direct your thoughts deliberately, you can begin to shape mental images that support your goals and aspirations. Visualization is not mere daydreaming. It is intentional focus on outcomes you desire, combined with the emotional energy of belief. Athletes use it to enhance performance, artists use it to bring inspiration to life, and spiritual practitioners use it to align their minds with higher realities. The more vividly you can hold a vision in your mind, the more it influences your actions and eventually your reality. But such visualization requires strong focus, the ability to hold attention on a chosen image without being swept away by distraction. One of the most overlooked practices for strengthening focus is rest. A tired mind cannot focus. Sleep, stillness, and moments of silence are not luxuries, but necessities for mental clarity. Just as a bow must be unstrung to retain its strength, the mind must be allowed to rest to function at its best. Meditation, nature walks, even moments of quiet breathing during the day replenish the energy of the mind and make focus possible. Without such renewal, attempts at concentration will always be a struggle. In mastering your thoughts, focus is not merely a tool for productivity, it is a tool for freedom. A scattered mind is a vulnerable mind, easily manipulated by fear, desire, and external influence. A focused mind is a sovereign mind, capable of choosing its own direction. This sovereignty is the essence of mastery, the ability to decide what occupies the space of your consciousness and to hold that space against all distractions. With practice, focus becomes more than discipline. It becomes your natural state. The noise of the world fades, and what remains is clarity, presence, and power. This journey toward focus is not completed in a day. It is a lifelong practice, one that grows stronger with every choice to return your attention to what matters. But the rewards are immense. With focus, you discover that your thoughts are no longer a restless crowd, but a disciplined force, working together toward the creation of a meaningful life. And in this unity of thought lies the true secret. The mind, once mastered, becomes your greatest ally, your most powerful tool for transformation. Now, before we move on to the next stage of mastering your thoughts, take a moment to support this channel. Subscribe now so that you do not miss the coming teachings, and together we can continue building a life of clarity, peace, and strength. The art of reframing, transforming negative thoughts into sources of strength. The journey of mastering your thoughts cannot be complete without addressing the reality that much of the suffering in life comes not from the events themselves, but from the interpretations we attach to them. The mind has a way of creating meaning, and that meaning often determines whether an experience is empowering or debilitating. Reframing is the art of taking a thought or situation and viewing it through a different lens, one that transforms pain into growth, fear into courage, and obstacles into opportunities. It is not denial of reality, but rather the recognition that reality is shaped by perspective, and that perspective can be consciously directed. To master your thoughts, you must master the art of reframing. Imagine a person who loses their job. One way of interpreting the situation is to fall into despair, to think, "I am worthless, I am a failure, nothing ever works out for me." Such thoughts create hopelessness and paralysis. Another way is to reframe. This is a chance to realign with what truly matters, to seek a career path that reflects my values, to learn resilience. The external reality remains the same, but the internal interpretation changes everything. The first interpretation imprisons the mind, the second liberates it. This is the power of reframing. Reframing begins with awareness, because you cannot change what you do not notice. When a negative thought arises, perhaps self-doubt, anger, or resentment, the first step is to catch it. Instead of allowing it to spiral into more negativity, pause and ask yourself, is there another way to see this? Often the mind jumps to the most fear-driven or limiting perspective. By consciously choosing to step back and reframe, you shift the energy of the thought. For example, the thought, "I always fail," can be reframed into "each attempt brings me closer to learning what works." The thought, "This rejection proves I'm not good enough," can be reframed as, "This is guiding me away from what is not meant for me and opening the path to something better." One of the most transformative aspects of reframing is its ability to change the emotional charge of a situation. Thoughts and emotions are deeply linked. What you think influences what you feel, and what you feel influences how you act. When you reframe a thought, you alter not just the thought itself, but also the emotional state attached to it. A setback that once filled you with despair can, through reframing, fill you with determination. A conflict that once made you angry can become a lesson in patience and compassion. This emotional shift is crucial, for emotions are the fuel that drive behavior. Change the thought and you change the feeling. Change the feeling and you change the action. Change the action and you change your destiny. It is important to emphasize that reframing is not about pretending that pain or difficulty does not exist. It is not about plastering false positivity over genuine struggles. Rather, it is about seeking a perspective that empowers rather than diminishes. For example, if someone betrays your trust, it is not helpful to pretend that it doesn't hurt. What is helpful is to acknowledge the pain and then reframe. This betrayal has taught me discernment. It has shown me the importance of boundaries, and it has freed me from an unhealthy bond. In this way, reframing honors the reality of pain, but refuses to let pain have the final word. Reframing can also be applied to self-talk, which is often the harshest voice in a person's life. Many people live with a constant inner critic, a stream of thoughts telling them they are not enough, that they are failing, that they will never succeed. This inner critic, left unchecked, can destroy confidence and hope. But when you learn to reframe self-talk, you transform the critic into a teacher. Instead of, "I'm terrible at this," you can reframe to, "I'm learning, and each mistake is part of growth." Instead of, "I'll never get this right," you can reframe to, "I haven't mastered it yet, but with effort I will." This simple shift in language alters the entire trajectory of growth. One of the most powerful reframes in life is to see every challenge as a lesson. When difficulties arise, instead of asking, "Why me?" ask, "What is this here to teach me?" This question reframes the situation from one of victimhood to one of empowerment. It positions you not as a passive sufferer, but as an active learner in the school of life. Every disappointment, every failure, every hardship becomes an opportunity for deeper wisdom. Over time, this mindset creates resilience. Life may bring storms, but reframing allows you to see the storm as a teacher, shaping your strength, deepening your roots, and preparing you for greater growth. Another layer of reframing involves gratitude. Gratitude is one of the most transformative perspectives you can adopt, for it reframes even ordinary or difficult moments as gifts. Instead of focusing on what is lacking, gratitude focuses on what is present. For example, when faced with financial hardship, gratitude can reframe the thought, "I don't have enough," into, "I am grateful for the little I have, and I trust more will come." Gratitude does not erase challenges, but it shifts the mind toward abundance rather than scarcity, hope rather than despair. This shift in perspective changes not only your inner world, but also the way you interact with others and the opportunities you attract. Reframing also extends into relationships. Often, conflicts with others stem from rigid perspectives, seeing someone's actions as intentional harm, interpreting words in the most negative way. Reframing invites you to consider alternative interpretations. Perhaps the person was acting out of their own pain, perhaps their words were clumsy rather than cruel. By reframing the situation, you open space for compassion and forgiveness. This does not mean excusing harmful behavior, but it does mean choosing perspectives that free you from bitterness and allow healing. At a deeper level, reframing is about aligning your mind with truth. Many negative thoughts are distortions, exaggerations, or outright lies that the ego tells to protect itself. Reframing challenges these distortions by seeking a higher truth. For instance, the thought, "I am alone," can be reframed into the truth, "I am connected to life, to humanity, to the universe, even if I feel isolated in this moment." The thought, "I am weak," can be reframed into, "I have endured much, and every trial has made me stronger." By consistently seeking the deeper truth, you dissolve the illusions that keep you trapped in fear. The practice of reframing grows stronger with repetition. At first, it may feel artificial to challenge negative thoughts. The old patterns are deeply ingrained, and the mind may resist new interpretations. But over time, with patience and persistence, reframing becomes natural. The brain itself begins to rewire, creating new pathways of thought. What once was a reflex of negativity becomes a reflex of empowerment. You begin to see possibilities where before you saw only problems, light where before you saw only darkness. It is worth noting that reframing does not mean ignoring action. Changing your perspective is the first step, but it must be followed by choices that align with that new perspective. If you reframe failure as a lesson, then you must act on that lesson. If you reframe rejection as redirection, then you must seek the new path that has opened. Reframing creates the mental and emotional foundation, but action builds the reality. Together, they form the complete cycle of transformation. One of the most liberating reframes is to see life itself as a journey rather than a destination. Many negative thoughts arise from comparison, from the belief that you should be further along, more successful, happier, wealthier. This perspective creates endless dissatisfaction, but when you reframe life as a journey, you realize that every step has value, that growth happens along the way, not just at the end. This perspective brings peace, for you no longer measure your worth by achievements alone, but by the depth of your experience and the wisdom you gain. In mastering your thoughts, reframing is not optional, it is essential. Without it, the mind remains at the mercy of old interpretations, stuck in cycles of fear and limitation. With it, the mind becomes a source of resilience, creativity, and strength. Every thought becomes an opportunity, either to imprison you or to liberate you. Reframing teaches you to choose liberation again and again until it becomes your natural way of being. The art of reframing is, in essence, the art of freedom. For no matter what happens externally, you always retain the power to choose your perspective, and in that choice lies the ultimate mastery, the power to transform suffering into wisdom, pain into compassion, and obstacles into stepping stones toward your highest self. So, as you continue this journey of mastering your thoughts, practice reframing every day. When negativity arises, pause and ask, is there another way to see this? With time, you will discover that the answer is always yes. The mind may resist, but the deeper truth always brings freedom, and in choosing that truth, you unlock the secret to living with strength, clarity, and peace. Before we move forward into the next stage of thought mastery, I invite you once again to support this channel. Subscribe now so you can continue to receive these teachings, grow alongside this community, and strengthen your journey toward true inner freedom. The necessity of inner silence, finding peace beyond thought. To master your thoughts, it is not enough to simply observe them or direct them toward focus and reframing. There is a deeper dimension, one that goes beyond the activity of thought altogether, the realm of inner silence. This silence is not the absence of life, nor is it emptiness in the negative sense. It is a vibrant stillness, a quiet depth in which the noise of the mind settles and the essence of your being emerges. In this silence, you discover a truth more profound than any thought could express, that you are not the constant chatter of your mind, but the awareness that precedes and outlasts it. Learning to cultivate inner silence is perhaps the most challenging, yet the most rewarding aspect of thought mastery, because it requires you to go beyond the comfort of constant mental activity and surrender into the vastness of presence. Most people are deeply uncomfortable with silence. Left alone without distractions, they feel restless, anxious, even fearful. The mind begins to race, filling the void with endless chatter. This discomfort reveals just how dependent we have become on external stimulation and internal narration. We cling to thought as though it were our identity, afraid that without it we would cease to exist. Yet the truth is the opposite. When thought quiets, your truest self shines forth. Inner silence is not the loss of identity, but the discovery of your essence beyond identity. The practice of inner silence does not mean forcing the mind into blankness, nor does it mean suppressing thoughts. Suppression only strengthens them, making them return with greater intensity. Instead, it is about creating space, about allowing thoughts to arise, but not feeding them with attention. Imagine sitting on the bank of a river. Thoughts flow past like water, but you do not jump in to chase them. You remain still, watching as they pass. Over time, the river slows, the water clears, and what once seemed turbulent becomes calm. This calmness is not something you create. It is something that emerges naturally when you stop clinging. Silence is also a form of nourishment. Just as the body needs rest and food, the mind needs stillness. Constant thought exhausts us, draining energy and clouding perception. In silence, energy is replenished. Ideas become clearer, intuition stronger, creativity more fluid. Great thinkers, artists, and spiritual teachers throughout history have emphasized the necessity of silence. It is in silence that breakthroughs come, not because the mind is working harder, but because it is finally still enough to listen to deeper wisdom. One of the most powerful ways to enter silence is through meditation, though not meditation as a technique to achieve something, but as a simple resting in being. Sit quietly, close your eyes, and observe. Do not strive to empty the mind. Simply let go of the compulsion to follow every thought. At first, the noise may seem louder, but with patience, a subtle shift occurs. You realize that you are the witness, not the noise. In that realization, the grip of thought loosens, and silence begins to reveal itself. This silence is not dull or lifeless. It is alive with presence, a profound sense of being here, now, beyond past and future. Another entry into silence is nature. When you walk among trees, mountains, or oceans, you encounter a natural stillness that resonates within you. The forest does not hurry, the ocean does not worry, the mountains do not argue. Their silence is a mirror of your own inner silence. Spending time in nature attunes you to this frequency, reminding you that peace is not something to create, but something already present when the mind quiets. Silence also reveals the illusions of thought. Much of what we think is repetition, stories told by the ego to maintain its sense of control. In silence, these stories lose their power. You see them for what they are, patterns, echoes, not absolute truth. This recognition is liberating, for you no longer need to believe every thought. Instead, you begin to rest in the deeper knowing that exists beyond thought, a knowing that is wordless yet more trustworthy than any mental narrative. The necessity of silence also lies in its power to heal. Emotional wounds often persist because the mind keeps rehearsing them, replaying painful scenes, attaching endless commentary. Silence interrupts this cycle. When you sit in stillness, allowing the pain to be without attaching story, healing begins. The wound breathes, the emotion passes, and you discover that beneath the pain there is peace. This healing does not come from analysis or reasoning. It comes from the space of silence, which embraces everything without resistance. In relationships, silence is equally powerful. Words often create misunderstanding, conflict, or superficial connection. Silence, when shared with another, creates depth, presence, and intimacy. Sitting quietly with someone you trust can communicate more than words ever could. It reveals that true connection does not depend on constant talking, but on being fully present together. In mastering your thoughts, you learn that silence is not emptiness in conversation. It is the ground from which authentic connection grows. Silence is also essential for spiritual awakening. Every tradition, whether Eastern or Western, points to the importance of stillness. In Christianity, silence is the space where one hears the still small voice of God. In Buddhism, silence reveals the emptiness that is fullness. In Sufism, silence is the language of the soul. Across traditions, silence is seen not as absence, but as the gateway to the eternal. When the noise of the mind quiets, what remains is the direct experience of being, of unity, of the sacred. Cultivating silence requires courage, for it means facing yourself without distraction. Many avoid silence because it confronts them with their fears, regrets, and insecurities. Yet this confrontation is the very path to freedom. In silence, you see the mind's illusions, you feel the emotions you have avoided, and in facing them, you dissolve their power. The silence holds everything without judgment, and in that holding, transformation occurs. Daily practice of silence is essential. Set aside moments each day to simply be. Turn off devices, step away from noise, and sit in stillness. At first, the restlessness will be strong, but with persistence, the mind adapts. Silence becomes not something foreign, but something familiar, even necessary. Over time, you will crave it as you crave food or water, for it nourishes the soul in ways nothing else can. As silence deepens, you begin to carry it with you. Even in busy environments, a part of you remains still. The noise of the world no longer unsettles you, for your center is grounded in silence. This is the true mastery, not escaping the world, but moving through it with inner peace. Your thoughts may continue, but they no longer control you. They arise within the vast space of silence like ripples on a vast ocean, and you remain rooted in the ocean itself. Ultimately, silence reveals the greatest secret. You are not your thoughts, not your emotions, not even your story. You are the awareness, the presence, the stillness in which all these arise and pass. This realization is the essence of freedom, for once you know yourself as silence, nothing can disturb your peace. Thoughts may come and go, but silence remains. The world may change, but silence endures. In this silence lies the unshakable foundation of mastery. So, as you walk this path of mastering your thoughts, do not neglect the necessity of silence. Seek it daily, embrace it fully, and let it teach you. In silence you will find the peace beyond thought, the strength beyond fear, and the truth beyond illusion. This silence is not something you create. It is who you are when the noise of the mind fades. And before we move into the next and final topic of this journey, I invite you to support this channel. Subscribe now so that together we can continue exploring the wisdom of mastering the mind and discovering the boundless peace that lies within. Aligning thought with purpose, creating a mind that serves the soul. The final step in the mastery of your thoughts is to bring them into alignment with a deeper purpose, to use the immense power of the mind not as a tyrant that controls you, but as a servant of the soul that guides you toward fulfillment. The mind is a tool, a remarkable instrument capable of analysis, imagination, and creation. But when it is left without direction, it becomes a restless wanderer, generating endless stories, fears, and distractions. Aligning thought with purpose is the art of giving your mind a clear orientation, a guiding star that channels its energy toward meaning. Without this alignment, thought mastery remains incomplete. You may learn to observe, to focus, to reframe, to enter silence, but unless your thoughts serve something greater than themselves, they will eventually return to chaos. Purpose is the compass that steadies the mind. To align your thoughts with purpose, you must first discover what your purpose is. This is not always a single answer, nor is it necessarily something dramatic. Purpose can be quiet, subtle, deeply personal. It is found in what gives your life meaning, in what awakens a sense of vitality, in what connects you to others and to something larger than yourself. For some, purpose is expressed through work, for others through relationships, creativity, service, or spiritual growth. Whatever form it takes, purpose is the fire that gives direction to the energy of thought. Without it, thoughts scatter. With it, they coalesce into a force of transformation. Once you begin to sense your purpose, the practice becomes one of alignment. This means consciously directing your thoughts to support that purpose. When doubts arise, ask, do these thoughts move me closer to my purpose or further away? When distractions tempt you, ask, do they serve what truly matters? This constant returning of the mind to purpose is like steering a ship. The winds of distraction will always blow, but with a steady hand on the wheel, you remain on course. Aligning thought with purpose also involves discernment. Not every thought deserves attention. Many are echoes of conditioning, voices from the past, fears projected into the future. Discernment means recognizing which thoughts are aligned with your deepest truth and which are mere noise. This is not always easy, for the mind can disguise fear as practicality or laziness as contentment. But with awareness and honesty, you learn to distinguish. Aligned thoughts feel expansive, energizing, truthful. Misaligned thoughts feel heavy, contracting, draining. By learning to sense the difference, you gradually purify your mental landscape, allowing only those thoughts that serve your higher path to guide your actions. The alignment of thought with purpose also requires patience. Purpose is not a destination you arrive at in a single step, but a path you walk daily. Along this path, thoughts will sometimes resist, old habits will resurface, doubts will whisper. This is natural. Mastery is not about never straying, it is about noticing when you stray and returning again and again. Each return strengthens the alignment, each redirection deepens the discipline. Over time, the mind becomes more cooperative, more willing to serve the greater aim. What once was a battlefield becomes a partnership between mind and soul. One of the most profound practices in aligning thought with purpose is intention setting. Each day, before the rush of activity, take a moment to set a clear intention. How do I want to direct my mind today? What quality do I wish to embody? What steps align with my greater path? These intentions act as seeds planted in the soil of the mind. Throughout the day, thoughts will arise that either nourish or hinder these seeds. By remembering your intention, you water the seeds of alignment and starve the weeds of distraction. Over time, this practice transforms the entire mental field. It is also important to understand that purpose evolves. What feels deeply meaningful at one stage of life may shift at another. Aligning thought with purpose, therefore, is not a one-time act, but an ongoing dialogue with yourself. It requires listening inwardly, adjusting, and allowing your purpose to unfold as you grow. This flexibility prevents the mind from becoming rigid, and it ensures that your thoughts remain attuned to the living truth of your journey rather than to outdated goals. Aligning thought with purpose also liberates you from comparison. Much of the suffering of thought comes from measuring ourselves against others, comparing achievements, possessions, or appearances. But when your thoughts are aligned with your unique purpose, comparison loses its grip. You realize that your path is not meant to look like anyone else's. Your purpose is your own, and your thoughts serve that, not the opinions of the world. This brings freedom, for you no longer waste mental energy trying to meet external expectations. Instead, your mind becomes a loyal ally in fulfilling your authentic calling. There is a spiritual dimension to aligning thought with purpose. The soul longs for expression, for connection with the divine, for participation in something infinite. When thoughts align with this longing, they become prayers, meditations, channels of grace. A thought of compassion aligns you with love. A thought of service aligns you with unity. A thought of gratitude aligns you with abundance. Each aligned thought is not only personal but cosmic. It resonates with the greater harmony of life. This is why many spiritual traditions emphasize disciplines of thought. Affirmations, contemplations, sacred recitations. They train the mind to vibrate with purpose, to move in rhythm with the soul. Of course, this alignment is tested most during difficulty. It is easy to keep thoughts aligned when life flows smoothly, but in hardship, the mind tends to revert to fear, anger, or despair. These moments are the true proving ground. When challenges arise, ask yourself, can I align my thoughts with purpose even here? Can I see this struggle as part of my path? Can I hold faith in meaning even when circumstances seem meaningless? Each time you succeed in reframing difficulty in light of purpose, you deepen your mastery. You discover that purpose is not fragile but resilient, capable of guiding you through storms. Practical steps also help. Surround yourself with reminders of your purpose, words, images, mentors, communities. These external anchors support the internal alignment of thought. When the mind wavers, such reminders bring it back. Discipline your environment as well as your mind, for they are interconnected. A cluttered space fosters scattered thoughts. A focused space supports aligned ones. The outer reflects the inner, and shaping both creates harmony. Another profound aspect of aligning thought with purpose is creativity. When the mind is freed from distraction and aligned with meaning, creativity flows naturally. Ideas come, inspiration sparks, solutions appear. This creativity is not forced, but arises as a byproduct of alignment. The soul longs to create, and when the mind serves the soul, creation happens. This is why many great works of art, science, and spirituality are born not of struggle, but of alignment. When the mind becomes a vessel for the deeper intelligence of life, over time, alignment becomes effortless. At first, it requires vigilance, constant returning, deliberate effort. But with practice, the mind learns its place. It discovers that serving purpose brings fulfillment, while straying into distraction brings emptiness. Gradually, thought itself shifts. Instead of generating fear or doubt, it generates guidance, vision, and encouragement. The inner dialogue becomes supportive rather than critical, empowering rather than draining. The mind becomes not a burden, but a blessing, a companion on the journey of the soul. The ultimate secret of aligning thought with purpose is surrender. You realize that your purpose is not something you invent, but something you align with. Something larger than your ego. It is already written in the fabric of your being, waiting to be expressed. When you surrender the mind to this greater current, thought ceases to be self-serving and becomes a conduit of truth. In this surrender lies freedom, for the burden of constant mental struggle lifts. You no longer need to control every detail. You need only to align and allow. As you walk this path, you will notice a profound shift. Life itself begins to align with your thoughts. Opportunities arise, synchronicities occur, doors open. This is not magic in the superficial sense, but the natural outcome of alignment. When your thoughts serve purpose, your actions follow, your energy radiates clarity, and the world responds. This harmony between inner and outer is the fruit of mastery. It reveals that mastering thought is not only about personal peace, but about participating in the greater flow of life with wisdom and grace. To master your thoughts, then, is to align them with purpose. Without this alignment, thought remains restless and fragmented. With it, thought becomes a powerful ally, guiding you toward fulfillment and peace. This is the final secret, the culmination of awareness, focus, reframing, and silence. Purpose gives direction, meaning, and depth. It transforms thought from a wandering force into a creative power that serves the soul. So let this be your practice. Each day, remember your purpose. Align your thoughts with it. Let every idea, every intention, every action be guided by meaning. In this alignment lies true mastery, for you will discover that your thoughts no longer control you, you control them, and together with your soul, they shape a life of clarity, freedom, and fulfillment. And before we close this journey, I invite you to take a simple but powerful step. Subscribe to this channel. By doing so, you not only support these teachings, but also commit to your own path of growth, ensuring that you continue to receive guidance and inspiration to align your thoughts with the deepest truth of who you are.